This response is particularly, so far, I mean, who knows, maybe this last minute will be magical. This response is particularly disappointing because, like he said, he was silent for a while. I think it's time to talk about Andrew Callaghan, which this is not going to be easy. You know, I'm very deeply interested in journalism as somebody who's, you know, going back to Ukraine soon to film and, you know, do war reporting, and I'm gaining more and more respect for the field. And somebody I particularly had, I don't know if I still have, there's a lot of emotions when it comes to thinking about Andrew that I have. I don't think I've fully processed them yet, and all the smoke hasn't cleared, so I don't want to, you know, come out with too much of a final conclusion. But this is a tough story, man. So the last time we covered this, I released a video on my second channel, if you guys want to know all of the details that I had at the time, where women have come forward accusing Channel 5, also known as formerly All Gas No Breaks, who just released a documentary about, you know, January 6th and everything around the election. That's very good, by the way. Fantastic. He exposed a lot of people. Really good work. He has been accused of sexual assault by multiple women. First, it was a single woman on TikTok. Then there was a bunch of hearsay, and I'm going to be honest, most of the hearsay is hearsay. And when we say hearsay, I'm not saying, oh, just like a rumor. It's one person saying that they saw another person say, maybe another person say they saw this, right? So we're like 3 to 4 separations removed. Nobody themselves can come forward with proof. It's just hearsay. That I would encourage people to just straight up disregard, because if it's hearsay, then it could just be complete rumor, completely fabricated. There's no face to a name. There's no way to fact check. There's no evidence coming forward. So that I basically disregarded at the time. But there was 2 accusations by the original person who came forward on TikTok and a second person who came forward. The first person detailing an event where she says that Andrew Callaghan worked to get her intoxicated before basically whittling her down, saying basically, do you want to fuck? She's saying no. Do you want to fuck? Like whittling her down, pestering her for sex, which is wrong. Pestering for sex is not good. If somebody says no, you should respect their wishes. And I'm not talking like, no, you know, like that old Bill Burr skit. I'm saying like, if they deny you sex, don't play games, stop. And like end that. And for a lot of men, I know this might feel weird to say, but for a lot of men, that actually is a lesson I don't think they learned, either due to not having sex ed, or the sex ed not being all encompassing, or never having these kind of conversations with their fathers and their mothers about how to properly engage in this type of behavior, because they never had the talk, or it was a talk that didn't include this. It's not something that's regularly discussed on television and radio. So the idea of pestering, I don't actually think I've ever remembered, at least from my memory, I'm a 21-year-old guy, a public conversation about pestering. I've never, from either on radio, TV, or anywhere, I don't remember anybody ever telling me pestering. Like the closest I can, like pestering is bad. The closest I remember to that is the idea of no means no. But if somebody in their mind was trying to justify it to themselves, they could try to say, well, if I eventually get her to say yes, then it's good. But you shouldn't be pestering, because you're taking somebody who doesn't want to have sex and you're basically trying to whittle them down, not into wanting to have sex, but basically trying to satisfy you, to satisfy your needs and not their own. It's an act they don't want to engage in. And there's a million things that could motivate them to, I mean, that could push them to, you know, service you sexually after you pestering them. It could be just fear that maybe if they don't do what you keep asking them to do, you're going to be violent with them. It could be just out of just general discomfort. It could be a million things, but don't pester people. And I'm saying this because I know there's a lot of young people in my audience who probably have also not had this conversation with their parents, who've probably not been told this in sex ed. I know there's a high amount of virgins in my audience, so something they probably haven't even had the opportunity to engage in this kind of gross behavior. But just know, pestering's not good. No means no. Don't play games with it. Just if they say no, just respect it. This is something that I was not told when I was younger. This is something that was not taught to me either by a family member or a school or any of that. But something that I did kind of learn on my own. And I think that's not necessarily the greatest that I learned that on my own, because I feel like this is something that should be more kind of just across the board talked about in something like sex ed. As much as everybody talks about like, oh, the grooming is coming for the kids and sex ed, they're gonna make them all gay. These types of conversations actually need to be happening more in sex ed, but sadly, that's not the type of dialogue we're having right now about sex ed in this country. It's about, the gays, yada yada. So that's the first person. The second person accused Andrew Callaghan of, like, in the car, grabbing her, trying to, like, touch her leg and convince her to have sex before, like, forcing himself upon her until she eventually kicked him out of the car. That's a very brief recollection of events. If you want to know the full details, you can either watch the video, which I've already talked about it, or go do the research yourself. But both of these accusations are very serious. And the second one is, if what the woman said is true across the board, is undoubtedly sexual assault. And so this was something, and I said this at the time, that Andrew Callaghan has to respond to. I know I saw some people at the time saying, well, you don't know, Dylan, maybe with all the news around this new, movie, he can kind of slide away. I was like, nope, it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. There's no way he's going to be able to slide away from it. And it seems that to be the case, because not only have multiple of his friends like Hasanabi reacted, which we saw on the last video I released, which I talked about, H3H3 came forward and said that Andrew talked to him in private, basically confirming the accusations of the two women. He didn't give like any DMs or text. That's what he said. So that's up to H3H3's interpretation of events and interpretation of a conversation he had with Andrew. According to H3H3, Andrew went to a psych ward to stop him from, hurting himself. Thankfully, Andrew is still physically okay. As far as I know, he's not hurt, he's not damaged, he's not anything like that. So he should be fine. And now Andrew, through lawyers, has released a few statements, but now has come forward and recorded a video about 24 hours ago. So that would mean he recorded this and released this on the 15th, giving a response, an official response. And I said at the time, especially after the first woman, the first accuser said, I don't need to show any evidence, you should just believe me. I said it would be very, very smart, and this should be true across the board, but especially if somebody's saying something like that, to listen to the other side. Well, right now it seems like a done deal, and we're gonna watch this together. For the first time, I haven't watched it. I think it'd be good for us to listen to Andrew's response. It's the least we can do to be fair to somebody who's been accused of some pretty heinous stuff. Not to mention the first girl, and not only her, but multiple people have basically said that we don't want you supporting Andrew's stuff. We want him gone. Basically out of the public sphere, out of the job he's worked so hard for, out of all of this, which he's very good at. He's very good at his job. And so if those are the stakes made by the accusers, then I do think that the very least we can do is listen to Andrew and listen to what he has to say. It's only fair, not only to Andrew, but to the future people who will be accused in public. And I'm certainly going to make sure that I be careful about that. This is a lesson I learned hard. So let's watch the video. Let's see what Andrew has to say.
All right. I never thought I'd make a video like this, but I think there's an important conversation to be had, and I just want to be fully accountable, honest, and transparent with all of you guys. So I'd like to start by thanking every single person who's came out in the past week to speak about different ways in which my behavior has made them feel uncomfortable or pressured during a sexual situation, and to people who said that I've made unwanted advances and had a hard time with rejection. I'm sure this was not easy to do. It's never easy to speak out, and it was hard for me to hear as well, because to be honest with you, up until this point, I didn't even really realize that I had this pattern that had affected multiple people. I'd also like to apologize for my silence. I think that when this stuff first came out, I was in a state of denial and shock. I was, just riding the high from my movie that just came out. And then within 48 hours, I was denounced by my closest collaborators, and my name was printed in.
So to be clear, he's talking about Tim Heidecker. Tim Heidecker is an American comedian. He was the person who basically, as far as I know, he produced Andrew Callaghan, Channel 5's documentary about the election, January 6th, and everything around it, you know, the movie This Place Rules, he basically said that he will no longer have a professional relationship with Andrew Callaghan. He still hopes This Place Rules does well because a lot of good people, he said, worked on the documentary. That's a good piece, but that he no longer has a professional relationship with Andrew Callaghan. Which, I mean, that's pretty insane considering that this is the person who produced Andrew Callaghan's documentary, which just came out. So this is like a massive blow to the career of Andrew Callaghan. That's not necessarily, like, of course, victims are what's most important, but I'm just giving the context.
In 40 different news outlets next to the words sexual misconduct, and I just kind of spiraled into a mental health crisis. I'm okay now, but I don't really think this is about me. This is about the people that I've affected. So I just want to express my complete sympathy, respect, and support for anyone who I've done wrong by. And I really want to do better and be fully accountable for everything that I've done.
So far, this is not the worst response. If like he's basically confirming what happened, like this is what I would be probably the most responsible response you could have so far. But the main thing I'm looking for is him confirming or denying parts of the stories that came out, because he just said, "Oh, my name in the headlines with sexual misconduct." Sexual misconduct is very vague and a very big net that can cover a lot of activity. And the second woman particularly accused him of what would be, I think, considered so in a court of law, and to basically anybody with two brain cells, as a sexual assault. And so I think a really important thing here is for him to confirm certain parts of the story to be true or not true. Not only because it's important for him to be transparent about what happened on those nights, and we've already heard that his recollection of events while going back and forth with these people from the accusers was different, but getting this timeline is important if we're going to have an honest conversation like he's asking for of what happened. And so far I would this is not bad, but we need that. That's super important, especially if he is admitting to what happened, because he needs to say what exactly he's admitting to. You know, he needs to say that. That's important, not only for transparency's sake, but also so people stop calling the victims liars if they're not lying, because that's still happening.
So that being said, I want to make a few things clear. I've always taken no for an answer. As far as consent, I've never overstepped that line. But, you know,
he never overstepped no. If that's true, then that means that the first woman and the second woman is lying. This is a denial. This is him denying what happened. This is him saying, because the first woman said that he pestered her after she said no until she said yes. So that would be him not taking no for an answer and keep going. And the second woman just straight up accused him of sexual assault after she said no to him, which would be crossing that line. And so if he's saying that he's never crossed that line, then that would mean he's saying that they're lying. And so that's what it sounds like so far. I mean, let me hear it again.
Things clear. I've always taken no for an answer. As far as consent, I've never overstepped that line. But
okay, yeah, I mean, that's what it sounds like. It sounds like he's saying that the first and second, the women that we're talking about in question are basically lying.
But, you know, I think I want to have a more nuanced and important conversation about power dynamics, pressure, and coercion. Because, you know, like I said, I think for a long time, I was behaving in a way that I actually thought was normal. I thought that, you know, going home from the bar alone made you a loser. I thought that persistence was a form of flattery. And I thought that, you know,
persistence was a form of flattery. This sounds like it's in reference to the first woman who said that he pestered her until she said yes. But if he took no for an answer, then that would mean that there would be no need for persistence in that way, unless he's referencing something else.
If at first somebody was reluctant, they're playing hard to get, just try harder. And if you think someone's
well, if that's the case, then she didn't take no for an answer. Okay, sorry. Okay.
feeling you, make a physical advance and see if they go with it. And I think that especially I realized when so many young people, especially young men, rushed to defend me when this stuff first started coming out, that this type of sex pest behavior is normalized. And a lot of people think this stuff is normal when I don't think that it is. And I think that I want to be fully responsible for not having a fluid understanding of consent and what enthusiastic two-way consent looks like. That being said, a lot of the things that have been said online about me are not true. A lot of things are missing really important contextual information that I think would change people's interpretation of a lot of these situations. But
that, unironically, is why we need him to give us that contextual information. Because right now, it sounds like I never crossed any, I never didn't respect no. If somebody told me no, I respected it. But, persistence, that's blurring the line of exactly what do you mean by persistence? Do you mean she says no and you keep going? Or like, hello, my darling, like you're outside her, like a fucking apartment building with like a radio and like a thing of flowers and you're doing like a funny TikTok dance to try to like win her heart. Like persistence can mean a lot of things, but in this context, it sounds like not taking no for an answer, which he said he did. Him giving more details here is super important so we can know the specifics of exactly what he is saying is being said that's true and not true. Because if he leaves it vague that a lot of the things that have been said about me are not true, and a lot of the things that said me, I guess, are true, like who's the liar and who isn't the liar? Like that's important because when he says this, people are just going to be like, okay, there's liars, and all the victims are going to get that label. The people are going to be like, I don't know who the liar is. Andrew didn't tell me. He said people are lying. Therefore, I just think it's you. And so this clarification is really important if these women aren't lying, which it's kind of hard to tell. I mean, like, according to him, if he's saying that he respected no as an answer, that he is saying that both of the main accusers, and not all the hearsay, but most of the main accusers are lying. But then I'm getting like some mixed messages with this like persistent stuff. And I guess like clarifying the story and clarifying the timeline, coming forward with texts and everything from his side, I think would be super important. What he can get, I understand, like with time, phones disappear, text messages disappear, you lose certain social media accounts and you lose the passwords, but whatever you do have, like, produce that.
I'm not here to invalidate anybody's lived experience. If you feel pressured, that's just what it is. I hope that young people and young men in particular can use my mistakes to learn and move through life with a better understanding of consent. As far as what I have planned, I'm not really sure what comes next. I mean, obviously, reporting is my one true love.
Okay, so we're at 3:10. This has a minute and later. He's talking about what's next. It doesn't sound like he's going to give any clarifications. This response is particularly, so far, I mean, who knows, maybe this last minute will be magical. This response is particularly disappointing because, like he said, he was silent for a while, only talking through, not even talking through, but like telling H3 that he's having a mental health issue and he's in the psych ward, and then talking through a lawyer to like Vanity Affair and like all these news publications that were like asking questions. Honestly, I probably would have respected more a lawyer being like, here's the timeline of events, here's what happened, here's what we can prove with our things and this and this and that, with our proof and our text messages. This is our official timeline of what happened. This is what he's admitting to that was wrong, and here's what he's denied. Like, that would be super useful here. It almost feels like kind of just like, yes, I messed up, but I didn't cross any like hard lines here, but like, persistence, my guys. Oof, I gotta learn that that's not bad. That's sex pesty behavior. I hope people learn from this experience. Goodbye. There's some people who are lying about me. That leaves so much vagueness and like blurriness that it's kind of hard to like tell truth from fiction here. and he needs to clarify that. Definitely after having so much time, this is like a 4-minute video. I feel like there needs to be context here that he is saying that is out, that needs to be there. He's saying a lot of this stuff is contextless.
Bankrupt man.
Okay, if it's contextless, add the context. General Mark, okay. Thank you for the Prime being sub for 6 months. Wow, half a year. I appreciate it, buddy. I'm back, B words. Wow, man. I appreciate the self-censorship. YouTube will love it.
And I'm 25 years old, and I have my whole life ahead of me. But I really think that I need to do some serious work on myself and figure myself out. So I'm going to start therapy sessions pretty much immediately. Also, not to blame alcohol, but I truly believe that alcohol was a contributing factor to my poor decision making. And I think that...
See, he's adding some context here. Like, well, my poor decision making, alcohol. Okay. But what were the decisions you made under the influence of alcohol? What's true and what's not true? Because if you're saying you never cross these lines, and I already went over this, but like, okay, you're giving explainers to try to explain away why you would have acted disgustingly and made bad decisions, but what were the bad decisions? And of course, this goes without saying, but inebriation does not excuse you of your actions. It can be an explainer for your actions, but it does not excuse you. You chose to drink. How you act after drinking or after taking drugs or anything like that is ultimately your fault because you made the decision to do the drinking. If you cannot do it responsibly, then don't do it at all.
Alcohol in general has had a devastating impact on my life. So I think I'm going to make the decision to join the 12-step program for Alcoholics Anonymous. And during this journey into sobriety, I want to take a serious step back from public life. And like I said, figure myself out. And I hope that this reaches the ears of anyone who's felt affected by me. I'd love to reach out to you, or you can reach out to me, even just for me to say, I'm sorry. And I really apologize, and I appreciate you all. I also want to apologize to my closest collaborators, my friends, my family, and people who will have to wear this stain on their career forever. You guys don't deserve this, and I love you guys. That being said, if you never want to watch Channel 5 again, I understand. I hope you remember it.
Well, I mean, it would encourage more people to watch Channel 5 again, possibly some context, unless the context would paint him in a worse light, of course, which... by leaving out the context, people's minds will naturally drift towards the worst conclusions. With somebody who cares so much about journalism, you'd think he would understand that people have questions about a story where, he's the center of it now. He's the journalistic center of this. And as a journalist, I would assume he would understand why people have questions when people have accused him of sexual assault. But nothing. Okay.
The missions of radical empathy and media literacy that we have tried to put into the world through our coverage. All right, that's all I want to say.
I mean, I gotta be honest, man. This is not a great response. He started off strong if he was about to admit to basically everything. But then it was like, I never crossed this line, which both of them said I crossed, so they're lying, which he didn't say that directly, because I think he knows that saying my accusers are liars would probably not look good, but he did say it indirectly, whether, he likes it or not. And then went on to say, but I did show persistence. What does that mean? I think like with the less detail, this is what it looks like from my perspective. And again, I was trying to be as charitable as possible to Andrew, and I like Andrew's content. I like his reporting. I think he really contributes something special to the media space in the United States. Not that nobody else can do interviews on the street or try to copy his style, but that he's really, really good at it, and he's only 25. Meaning, imagine what he's going to look like 10 years from now when he's 35, with over a decade under his belt. It feels like the details would make him look worse, considering the type of details both of those women went into, and therefore he's leaving the details out. That's what it feels like. And I understand, like, some of the accusations from other people were like hearsay and not responding to that. It's like, okay, I understand that. Or some of it was like hearsay about him while he was in high school, and like, dude, you weren't even an adult. Like, okay, I can understand that. But this doesn't show like journalistic integrity. This doesn't show the qualities I would think he would have gotten after being a journalist for so long, a high profile journalist now, one of the most well-known kind of gonzo type journalists in the country. I mean, it's quite a disappointing response. And I've seen firsthand how these types of videos go and how they're produced and like the type of prep that goes into them. And I find it hard to believe that he couldn't have gotten the context necessary in under a week. In fact, I think somebody, if they tried hard enough, could get all the stuff together in like a day, really. Or at least enough to make a better statement than this. Having been involved in that type of stuff before. So it just feels like he's using vagueness and blurriness to kind of distort the details, because the closer you look at this, the worse it looks for him. And so he kind of concentrated on, like, I care about conversations, I care about the victims, I didn't cross any lines, but maybe I did persistence, and alcoholism. I'm going to go into the 3-step program, and I'm going to go into therapy, taking time for myself. Goodbye. I know less after having watched this video than I do from before watching this video. The only stuff I know now is that Andrew is going to be in a semicircle with others talking about how much he likes the Jägermeister, or tequila, whatever his tastes are, and that he's going to be talking to a shrink. That's all I got from this, really. And that he denies it, but not really. This is not a good response. I said that we should have given Andrew the time to, respond, because it's his career, it's his future. It's the only honorable thing to do, and we've done it. And this is a pretty piss poor response. It feels like the blurriness is assisting him a lot here, doing a lot of the heavy lifting. And I hope Andrew, either through a lawyer, which might be the smart thing to do because lawyers are probably better at this and management and stuff like that, or through anybody, he needs to have a timeline created, say what's true, what's not, at least when it comes to the two main accusers, because I walk away with very little new info from this. Honestly, kind of a pathetic response.